Hello. Today we are going to make the perfect creamy, cozy soup that's loaded with pillowy gnocchi. It's going to taste like you got it at an Italian restaurant, but you didn't. You made it here in your kitchen in 30 minutes or less. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is turn your stove to medium heat, and once it's on medium heat, add a drizzle of your favorite olive oil, probably a tablespoon, I would say. And while that's heating up, you're going to dice one onion. My recipe calls for a red onion, but all the red ones in the store this week didn't look very good. So this one also is really big, so I'm just going to use half of it. Also, please don't judge my knife skills. Trying to cut well, trying to have my hands not be weird and get the camera angle. I feel like it's making me chop weird. Also, my knives are super dull. I need to sharpen them, but I hate the sound, so I totally avoid doing it as long as I can. Also, something I always do, if I'm only going to use half the onion, I chop the other half and put it in a jar in the fridge so that for my next recipe it's super easy and it's all ready to go. Now I have my onion ready to go, nice and diced for my next recipe. I think next I'm going to show you guys how to do my enchilada skillet because it is one of our absolute favorites. We make it almost every week. I'm going to add the onion. Okay, our onion is cooking, nice and sizzling. We're going to cook this until it starts to brown a little bit. I'd say it usually takes 8 minutes and I stir it pretty often. And while the onion is going, I have my potatoes and carrots. Recipe calls for 1 large carrot, but these are a little small, so I did 2. It also calls for baby red potatoes, but they didn't look that great, so I grabbed just some bigger red potatoes. And this is soaking in a little bit of baking soda. That helps get rid of some of the pesticides. Even though they're organic, I still like to do that. Sprouts like this are toxic. You don't want to be eating those, so I always look for those, cut off those little spots. And you just want these chopped in bite-sized pieces. So the smaller you chop, the faster they will cook also. So if you are in a rush, you could chop them smaller. Potatoes are one of my least favorite things to chop because I feel like they get so sticky on the knife. My favorite thing to chop, hands down, is celery. Okay, I'm going to add the potatoes to a bowl so I have room to do the carrots. And I'm not going to add it to the onions now because if I add too much to the pot, then the onions aren't going to cook as nicely. They're not going to cook as fast because there will be so many other veggies taking up room in the pan. So we're going to let the onion keep going. I'm going to do the carrots. This soup is one of my all-time favorites. We make it so often because it's such a filling soup. So this is a great one for someone who just had a baby. For a long time, my husband would always say he didn't like soup. And then come to find out it was just because he never felt like they were filling enough. And this is a soup that is so filling. The potatoes, the potato gnocchi, just everything in it. And it is also soup that is way better the next day. Once it's soaked up all the flavor, it's like lasagna in that way that the leftovers are so good. One thing I will note is it does thicken in the fridge, so when you're reheating it, add some vegetable broth or some water and a little bit of salt. That will bring it right back to the texture that you want, but yeah, there's not something I've really found that can prevent it from thickening in the fridge. The only thing that probably would is not adding the gnocchi and just adding some when you reheat it, but that just seems like a lot of work to me. Let's check on our onion. Looking good. It's starting to brown a little bit. Probably just give it another minute or 2. Okay, this is what you want the onion to look like when it's done and ready. It's starting to get brown. It's just looking so good. So I'm going to add the potatoes, the carrots, and a little splash of water because once I add the potatoes, it is going to stick. But make sure when you add water that your pan is not too hot, otherwise the oil is going to splatter. So as you can hear, mine isn't super hot right now. You might even want to turn it down to low heat when you add that water. I'm gonna add in those veggies and a little water. Maybe this is like 1/4 cup to deglaze the pan and prevent any sticking. Okay, next I'm gonna mince my garlic and I'm gonna add it with the spices to this little bowl. So my recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic. My husband is feeling a little under the weather, so I'm gonna double it because garlic is super great for your immune system. But if you are not sick or you don't love garlic, I'd say to do 3. But I try to make my recipes just for the everyman who maybe isn't as obsessed with garlic, maybe doesn't have as high of a garlic tolerance. I don't know if everyone does this, but I cut off the little hard ends on garlic. Maybe it's just the OCD in me, but I just don't like the idea of getting that in my mouth while I'm eating. Always, always, always use fresh garlic. It's so much better. You can tell it just smells so much better, and there are tons of tricks to make using fresh garlic easier. I personally just do the smashing it with the knife trick to get the skin off. I don't do anything else, but it really doesn't take long to mince fresh garlic. It takes a couple minutes, and I feel like it just elevates your recipe so much more. The spices are pretty simple, just 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, and 1 tablespoon of paprika. Also, gotta keep it real, I just spilled a bunch of this paprika. This fell into the sink. Okay, let's check on our veggies. We're gonna add the spices and the garlic and cook for 1 minute. Get all those spices incorporated, and this is where your house is going to smell so good. This is my favorite part of cooking, when you can just smell all the flavors coming together. We're gonna add some vegetable broth next, but you wanna save 3/4 cup for blending with some cashews to add some extra creaminess. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'd say that's 3/4 cup. I'm gonna save this. Add the vegetable broth. So it's 6 cups total minus that 3/4 cup. So 5 1/4 cups of vegetable broth that's gonna go in here. And then we're also gonna add the beans and the sun-dried tomatoes now, and we're going to turn up the heat. I love this recipe because it's really not much chopping. It's just the 3 veggies and the garlic, and it just comes together really quickly. I'm gonna add some white beans. I'm using Great Northern beans today. So we're just gonna rinse those off. I turned up the heat, so I'm bringing the soup to a boil now, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer. I'm going to stir in those beans. And I also have our sun-dried tomatoes that I chopped. We're going to add those in. As you can see, the soup is boiling, so I just turned it down. I turned it down to low, and we're going to keep it simmering, but yeah, we don't want that boiling. And we're just going to cook it until these potatoes are cooked. Then we'll add the gnocchi and other things. Now we're going to use that reserved vegetable broth with 3/4 cup of cashews, and we're going to blend that up and save it to add at the very end. I also am going to add my gnocchi. This is the kind I get from Whole Foods. I'm just going to prep it to add to the soup, and I'm going to do this because it sticks together like this, so I like to break it all up so that it's nice and ready when I add it in, just to make sure that it'll cook evenly. I don't want them to be all stuck together, so I just like to break it up with my fingers. Okay, now we have our cashew cream ready to add at the very end. And also I have some spinach. Don't laugh. I thought I had a lot more that hadn't gone bad, so we just have a tiny bit. Normally I do 2 cups. And then I'm going to juice a lemon that's going to go in at the very end also. So this is all stuff that you can prep while the potatoes are cooking, because once we have the gnocchi, that cooks super fast, and then we add in these last few things, and then it's done. Super easy. I think the hardest thing about cooking is just making sure that everything gets done at the same time. So if you're just continuously doing things like this, and then in between, if you ever have extra time cleaning the kitchen, you're going to find cooking to be so much easier, so much smoother. This was a huge thing for me with chefing that made it possible for me to make like 5 dinners in 4 hours or something like that. I just tasted a potato. It was totally done. So I'm going to go ahead and add the potato gnocchi. It cooks really fast. Like, it cooks in 3 to 4 minutes. And you can tell it's done when it floats. So even though this pan or this pot is stuffed to the brim, I really need to get a big stainless steel soup pot. I will be able to tell it'll float to the top a little bit, so you're going to want to let this cook. I am going to turn it up a little bit because I do want it to stay simmery. Okay, as you can see, the soup is looking amazing. The gnocchi is floated to the top. So now I'm going to stir in the pinch of spinach, as my husband called it. He walked it and he was like, that is hardly anything. I know. Okay, I've removed it from heat. Now I'm going to stir in the cashew cream. Wow, look at that. Beautiful. Okay, we're gonna stir it in. Oh, look at this. Creamy, cozy perfection. If this soup hit the spot, don't forget to like and subscribe for more cozy, easy recipes every single week. Comment what comfort food I should make next, and see you next time. Thanks for watching.